Now, as part of Spina Bifida Awareness Week here in the UK, I reached out to a couple of people I know who have spina bifida to find out more about their experience of spina bifida, their experience of living with it, and their story. And their story is always really, really powerful. And this recording, this podcast, is actually the first of these two interviews. And this is with a young lady called Kayla Olden. And Kayla, I reached out to on social media, on Twitter, and she very kindly said yes to have a chat with me. And she's based over in the US. She's in Portland, in Oregon. And her story is amazing. Her experience of spina bifida, her experience of growing up with spina bifida is just stunning, and it's great to listen to. And it was a real pleasure talking to her. But added on top of that is all the really good stuff that she does now to support other people with spina bifida, and also the work she does in the mental health space, helping people to get more knowledge, helping people to feel more confident with all of their symptoms, and really just serving them in such an amazing way. So I invite you to grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or a drink of your choice, pull up a seat, pop your headphones on, and have a listen to this great conversation that I had with Kayla. Cool. Okay. So Kayla, really grateful for you coming on and having a chat to me. Really, really grateful. I have a few questions, but I want to keep this kind of as, I suppose, as flexible as possible. I want to really find out. My main interest in all of this is, you have spina bifida, is finding out a little bit more about you, about your spina bifida, about how it affects you. And I suppose ultimately what you'd like people to know about it. My spina bifida is occulta. It doesn't affect me. It definitely affects me that I've had ulcerations on my feet, and I get issues with my back, and I have some muscle weakness on my left side, and I also have some neuropathy. But with the continuum of spina bifida, everyone is different. So tell me about your spina bifida.
I have myelomeningocele, and it affects me from the waist down, and I have nerve damage in various spots. It's kind of sporadic. I'm weaker on the left side. I do walk, but as of the last couple years or so, I've relied on my wheelchair more.
Okay. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking? Never ask a lady her age, but
I'm 32.
we're 32. Okay, so you're young. You're still young. Tell me how you kind of, when did you really understand what was going on with your spina bifida? Because for me, it was because there was no real outward signs. I had some surgery before I was at school, but actually until I got to 20, which is when I had my first foot ulcer, I knew there was something there, but my parents were they didn't really, we didn't really discuss it. I just kind of got on with things. I was not very good at sport. And it was only really when I got my foot ulcer, I started to kind of see that there was actually something which was a problem. So when were you first aware of what was going on?
I have always known that I had spina bifida. My mom found out just before I was born, I believe, while she was still pregnant. So I grew up knowing that I had it. I walked different than everybody else, so it wasn't something that I could hide.
Yeah. So something you've lived with, I suppose, knowingly for a lot longer than I have. I'm 46 now, so I'm much older than you. Definitely much older than you.
Yeah.
What's the, out in the US, what's the kind of information around for parents? So you say your mum found out that you
hmm
had spina bifida just before you were born. What kind of information is out there for parents? What kind of knowledge is out there?
They can detect it via ultrasound, and I believe they can also detect it with amniocentesis.
Yeah.
Um, and some people are born and then they see it after they're born, but I think generally they see it on an ultrasound, and that's how most people find out.
Yeah, it was it was 1973 I was born. There was originally, and I think this is quite interesting, was that they used to think that spina bifida was an issue with potatoes because quite in Ireland, there's a larger proportion of people born with spina bifida. So they used to link it to potatoes. And it was much later on that they kind of found the folic acid link. Is there advice in the US about supplementation of folic acid? Is that something which is pushed quite a lot?
Yeah, you hear about it all the time. They have added fortified foods like pretty much to everything now. And 90% of the time when people talk about spina bifida, they talk about the importance of having folic acid. But what a lot of people don't understand is that just because you take folic acid, it's not a guarantee that your baby won't have spina bifida. It just helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We have an organization here called Shine, which is it's Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Network. I'm in one of their groups for over 40s, and I only really found this group literally when I became over 40. I didn't even know anything like this existed. They've been pushing for quite a while for fortified flour, so flour fortified with folic acid. So it's something which we're probably a little bit behind the curve over here compared to the US, but it is something which seems to be coming over here now.
Yeah, it's interesting that they thought it was linked to potatoes. I'd never heard that.
Yeah, well, I did a presentation on stage earlier in the year about this to a group of podiatrists and foot health professionals, and I think they'd asked me to do it A, from the perspective of a professional, but B, from the perspective of somebody living with spina bifida. And statistics are really hard to come by in the UK on the incidence of spina bifida. And I did actually ask Shine to see what they could get, and they couldn't come up with anything. So I found some from an older American text. And the two places where spina bifida was at its highest was in Ireland and also, interestingly, in China. So I'm not quite sure what the links are and why that's the case, or whether it's diet. I honestly don't know. But yeah, it's quite interesting when you start looking at the statistics. It's quite a noticeable difference.
Yeah, I heard about that about Ireland, but I didn't know that about China.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what the stats I've got are quite, and I clearly hold up my inability to find out any more modern stats. But yeah, I'm not sure how much that's changed. And I think certainly with the introduction of folic acid and the advice and guidance which came out about that, I don't know whether the numbers are lessening or whether the severity or the worst side of the continuum seems to be changing. It's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is.
You talked before about walking differently. What was your experience of growing up with spina bifida?
I think for the most part, it didn't really affect me as far as like being a kid. I did, most things that most kids did. But I got a lot of people asking why I walked that way and just various questions. And when I was in elementary school with my mom, we would talk to the class at the beginning of the year and explain that I had spina bifida and what it was to hopefully like lessen the kids from teasing me, which helped a little bit. I think as I got older, it was more accepted.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have my left leg, which is the one which is really affected. My right leg's not brilliant anyway, but my left one has some definite muscle definition and muscle sizing differences. And I've been working on some kind of fitness and nutrition recently, which has involved me actually measuring one of my calf muscles. And my wife actually this morning she measured the left calf, and there's a good 4 or 5 centimeters difference in the actual width of the calf. Now, when I was growing up, there's no way you would have found me wearing shorts because I was so, as a teenager, I was so self-aware of that difference in the leg. I knew there was a difference in the leg, and I was so self-aware and didn't like my legs. You would never have seen me in shorts. Now, in the summer, I'm in shorts all the time. You very rarely find me wearing anything else other than shorts. And I think it's that it's that difference between being, younger, being at school, being a teenager, potentially being picked on, and having people tease you, which is quite a powerful thing.
Yes. My legs were a lot smaller too, and I always hated wearing shorts. So I relate.
Do you wear shorts now?
Not often, but yes, I do.
Well, I don't know. What's the weather like in Oregon?
Uh, in my part of Oregon, it's rainy mostly. Yeah, we're known for rain. And then in the summer, it gets warm, but not like excessively hot.
So you don't want to be wearing shorts anyway; it'd be too cold.
Well, yeah, maybe at the beginning of the summer. By the end of the summer, it's pretty hot. And I'll wear shorts then.
Yeah, it's interesting, and probably now you don't worry about that now, or if you do, you certainly don't worry about it as you would have done as a youngster.
No, definitely not as much as when I was a kid.
So have you got any children?
No, not yet.
You're planning on some?
Yes, I would like to have some. Yes.
Awesome. I have three. My eldest, and I remember when me and my then girlfriend, now wife, decided that we were going to try for children. I remember being particularly worried about the possibility of almost passing on, the genetic passing on of the spina bifida, and we were very particular on our, folic acid consumption and getting all the checks done and all of that kind of stuff. Have you going through that kind of same process as well? Is that a worry for you? Is that something which you've really been thinking about?
It's definitely something that is on my mind because I know that there is a slightly higher chance of that happening compared to someone else who doesn't have spina bifida. But the risk isn't really that much higher. I met with a high risk pregnancy doctor a few years ago just to find out what my options would be and get questions answered and find out just how likely it would be that I would have a baby with spina bifida. And they can't ever rule it out, but I think most people who have spina bifida and become parents, at least the ones I've heard about, their children more often than not did not have spina bifida.
Yeah. Certainly with our three, they're all clear. There's no problems there. But it's interesting that there's that push to not pass it on. But I'm not sure that if any of my kids had spina bifida, that it would be a great worry. I wouldn't particularly have any concerns with it. It would be something which we would manage with a really good knowledge of what it's like to be in that place. I mean, for me, and I suppose listening to you talk about, you've known this all your life. This is your normal and this is my normal. I don't know any other way to be other than having spina bifida.
Yeah, exactly.
But that feels kind of cool in a way. I don't know how it feels for you. It feels kind of cool for me.
Yeah. And if I did have a child with spina bifida, I wouldn't be thrilled because I mean nobody wants that for their child. But like you said, I have it, so I understand what that's like, and it would be okay. We would figure it out, and I'm not as worried about it as maybe somebody without spina bifida would be.
Yeah, absolutely. How does the spina bifida affect kind of your daily life now?
I have a lot of chronic pain, and I have a lot of secondary chronic illnesses. Some of them related to spina bifida, some of them are not. And I got osteoarthritis when I was 15 in
Wow.
both of my knees, and my knees have worn out now, and eventually will need to be replaced. Um, it makes it hard to exercise um, without being in a lot of pain. Um, and then I also have a neurogenic bladder and bowel, so it affects my digestive stuff as well. And when I was a baby, I had hydrocephalus, so they inserted a shunt to
Got you.
drain the fluid. My shunt is no longer functioning, but I clearly don't need it anymore. So, as far as I know, my hydrocephalus is now inactive. And I'm also a lot shorter than most people.
Also known as the perfect height, then.
Yeah, I guess so.
It goes to show, doesn't it, the continuum of spina bifida, that even if, you know, there's a scan done in the womb of the fetus, and they'll say, oh yes, you know, this child has spina bifida, you kind of don't know what to expect. I know with the hydrocephalus, there's you can pick up some other signs and symptoms on the ultrasound scan, but actually that whole continuum is. I mean, I have some friends with spina bifida who only found out that they had spina bifida because of an X-ray they had on their back for something else going on, and they just reported and said, "Oh, there is spina bifida here." Other than that, there was no outward signs. Whereas a friend of mine, Ben, who's a DJ, he actually runs his own DJ and entertainment business. He uses a wheelchair user. He's a wheelchair user now, and he had fairly kind of, you know, serious mobility, you know, issues and difficulties, and he's kind of further down the other end of the spectrum and gets some memory problems and things like that. He's a really cool guy, but it just goes to show you the difference, and you almost don't know what you're going to get. It's a little bit of a lottery, really.
Yeah, they call spina bifida the snowflake condition because no one person with spina bifida is the same as another person with spina bifida.
Yeah. I like that. I've never heard it called that before, but I like that. That's a really cool way of putting it.
Yeah. So, I mean, doctors can't ever accurately predict how it will affect somebody because they just don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
Yeah. I remember when before I became a podiatrist, I was a nurse. I always picked the professions which were going to be hard on my back for some reason. I didn't think that one through. And yeah, it was a, what shall I do? I'll be a nurse. I have to lift people and move them around. I'll do that anyway. But I remember reading some statistics around prediction rules for spina bifida and also for Down syndrome. They're the two which tend to get connected together. And I think if there was something like, and the figures may well be wrong on this, it's been a number of years since I looked at it, there was a 270, if there was a 1 in 276 chance of a child having spina bifida or Down syndrome, they didn't tell you. But if it was a 1 in 275, they did. It was kind of that arbitrary cutoff point. And they also looked at statistics around abortion rates when parents had that information. And they found that more parents would actually go down the route of an abortion for somebody with spina bifida, for a child with spina bifida, than they would do for a child with Down syndrome. And I think it comes back to that snowflake thing as well, that you don't know what's going to happen. Whereas with Down syndrome,
Right.
you do.
There is this there's a lot of scared parents out there who are finding out that their baby has spina bifida, and unfortunately a lot of the doctors still even will tell them the worst case scenario and scare the parents even worse, and they feel like terminating the pregnancy is their only option or the kindest option for their baby, because you know they think all of these horrible things are going to happen, but doctors can't accurately predict that. They don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that doctors should be recommending termination. Of course, that should always be presented as an option if that's what somebody wants to do, but I don't think they should recommend it like so many do that I've heard about.
Yeah, and it's not just in spina bifida though, is it? There's
No.
something which goes right the way across any kind of neurological condition or any condition which comes with, you know, with gestation and from pregnancy. And it's I always think back to people like Stephen Hawking, who, if you know, with kind of the disabilities that he had, and other famous people who've made really massive changes to the world, who, if things had been different, wouldn't have had that opportunity. And I find that, yeah, that's kind of the superpower stuff. Which is a question I want to ask you. What do you do? What's your kind of profession?
I don't currently work because of health issues.
Yeah.
But I was off and on throughout all of my adult life. I've been a nanny, taking care of various children, and prior to that, I was a caregiver.
Got you. Okay. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I like taking care of people.
So what do you do now? What's your what do you spend your time doing? Because I'm sure you have some really cool stuff that you get up to.
I have two kittens and a dog, so they keep me busy at home when I am home. I have a boyfriend, and he lives with me, and I spend a lot of my time with him. Um, and I like to travel when possible. Um, I like photography as well. And I also run several groups on Facebook um, related to disability and also mental health. So that takes up the most of my time is running my social media groups.
Wow. So kind of leading all those groups from a place of experience, and also that
Yes.
kind of caring thing as well.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make the world a better place in whatever small way that I can. And if I can make a difference to even one person in any of those groups or anywhere else, then I feel like I did my job.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. I'll tell you a very quick story. I've just spent 3 days in three different locations. One near to me in the Midlands in the UK. The second day was in Tame in Oxfordshire, which is a bit further south. And then yesterday was in London. And at each of those places, I was speaking. And the first day, I was speaking about video to a networking group. The second day, I was speaking about social media to a group of people in my industry, so foot health specialists. And then yesterday, I was at somebody else's event, but I was asked to talk about. There's a story I told a while ago at an event about various things, and it kind of tells my story in a way, and it's in three parts, and one part is a very sterile story. The second part is one where I actually go into detail on my spina bifida, and I didn't have time to do it, but I talk about the impact that my spina bifida probably had on my parents, and also talk about the conversations I had with a surgeon when I was 40, considering amputation of my leg. But it's but listening to you talk about your stuff, I mean, your story's absolutely stunning. And I'm the question I'd ask you is how much have you shared your story?
I'm pretty transparent. If people ask me questions, I usually answer honestly. I talk a lot about spina bifida, especially on social media, because I want people to know about it, and I want them to know how it affects me and my life, because it does affect every part of my life. Um, but I've met some really amazing people because I have spina bifida. And like I said, I run the groups, and then I'm a member of a bunch of other groups. And I think for people who have spina bifida and disabilities in general, social media is really important.
Yeah.
It makes people feel a lot less alone.
Yeah, it's a good community to be part of, isn't it? And it takes away some of the distance issues that we might have. So you can have people. So we're having a conversation 8 hours apart in time, thousands of miles apart, and we're talking to each other live. I mean, that's kind of stuff's really cool. That's the good stuff which technology does.
Yeah, it's amazing, and all because we both have spina bifida.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting. I when I joined the Shine group, the Shine 40 plus group, because I'm not a wheelchair user, because mobility is relatively good. I fall over. I had a club foot, which seems to be quite a common thing with spina bifida as well for a lot of people I've spoken to. I kind of looked at the group of people in there and thought, actually, I feel like a bit of an imposter If that makes sense. It's kind of like I don't have spina bifida to that severity. But what's been really interesting in that group is just how there's some people that are amazing, and the majority are amazingly welcoming. But there's a lot of people who are very, very stuck, very emotionally, mentally and psychologically stuck, and really, I think, struggle with what they have and struggle with the world around them. And I find that really, really sad. But the group is amazing for, kind of general support. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, I've noticed that here as well. And I understand what you mean, because, having a quilta and then having myelomeningocele like what I have, it's like two completely different types of spina bifida, completely different ends of the spectrum. So, but I think no matter what degree of spina bifida you have, it's still valid. And I don't think you should feel like you're an imposter because it still does affect you.
Yeah, 100%. No, thank you. And you've just cancelled me there. That was beautiful. that was you coaching me. That was brilliant. Have you ever thought of starting Facebook groups and supporting people? I think you'd be good at that.
Yes.
But it's really interesting because I shared my spina bifida story. I shared. Oh, it must have been 2017 when I first started talking about it. And I talk to people now as part of the coaching I do with people. I talk to them about the fact that they all have a story and they should share it. And they might think their story's boring, but actually it's really interesting and it will inspire. And like you said earlier, you only need to inspire one person with what you do. And that's kind of it. That's enough. Everything above that is a bonus. But I got interviewed by a friend of mine who's a podiatrist, and she kind of went through my whole career. And she said, well, how did you get into podiatry? And we talked about spina bifida ulcerations. And at that point, I'd never really shared it. And I shared it some more last year when we had Spina Bifida Awareness Week. But I kind of think now that one of my roles when it comes to spina bifida is sharing, like you said before, about sharing your experience, because you don't know how that experience is going to help that one person.
Exactly. And I think that's the best way people learn and also feel connected, knowing that they're not alone.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing. And the only people really who can understand what it's like to have spina bifida are people with spina bifida.
Yes. And I love that you got into podiatry because of it, because if anyone knows about feet problems, it's people with spina bifida. So
Yeah,
that's a really good profession for that.
it is. Do you see a podiatrist at all?
Yes, I do.
Oh, because they're in America. They're all doctor. Well, they're DPMs, I think. Is it Doctor of Podiatric Medicine? So they're mostly surgeons.
Yeah, I don't see my podiatrist too often. Usually, just when I get a foot ulcer, which I haven't had one in quite a few years. But my podiatrist is actually in a wheelchair.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think he has spina bifida, but he definitely is in a wheelchair.
Wow. So again, another podiatrist who has a real understanding from their own kind of lived experience.
Yes.
Oh, don't you see I get really excited by that kind of thing, because you're going to trust somebody who can really has really experienced the kind of stuff which you've experienced.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Wow. So how many foot ulcers have you had?
I think I've had 3. One of them was serious enough that I had to go to a wound clinic, and I couldn't walk on my foot for a few months until it healed. The other ones were relatively minor and were able to heal faster. And once I had changed the type of shoes that I was wearing, um, I stopped getting them as frequently. And then now, I don't walk as much as I used to due to my health changing. So I don't put as much pressure on my feet as I used to. So I don't get them as often.
Okay. What was the change in the shoes?
I went from wearing Converse shoes to New Balance.
Okay. Yeah.
So Converse are really flat shoes, and I didn't know, but apparently they're just about the worst shoes you can ever wear for your feet. And my podiatrist basically ordered me to get a new pair of shoes, and he suggested athletic shoes, and I got New Balance, and I've been wearing New Balance ever since.
Yeah, but yeah, Converse. I had some Converse many years ago because my left foot being the foot which is affected more with the spina bifida is, I think they measured it recently when I had to go and buy. I don't wear shoes often. I wear trainers most of the time because I can pull the laces really tight. But I wear a size 13, which would be US 14, I think. And
Oh wow!
yeah, well, you talking about height before. I'm 6'2", so I'm pretty tall.
Really? Wow!
I know, and that comes with its own kind of problems as well. But with my feet, so because I think I'm a size 13, but then my smaller foot, depending on who measures it, is anywhere between about a 9 and a 10. So there's quite a big difference. But I had Converse.
Yeah.
I know, and it's great. It's great if you run a shoe shop because you see me coming a mile away and you can sell me 2 pairs of shoes for twice the price. But I tried Converse a long time ago. The flatness is an issue because of my left foot being it's what we call an equinus foot. So the toes sit lower than the heel. So in order
Uh-huh.
to get my whole foot down to the ground, it puts a lot of strain through the back of my calf muscles, and I don't have that flexibility. So all of the stuff I wear now, and a bit like the New Balance you're talking about, the heel is slightly higher than the front of the foot. So it's almost like a
Yeah.
little kind of heel, and that does take the pressure off massively. And they're a lot wider as well.
Yeah, and they're more stable for your ankles.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Your podiatrist sounds like a really really cool guy.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
So how do you manage kind of the day-to-day stuff with, I mean, do you have anyone who helps you with things like nail care or any hard skin or anything like that? Or is that all stuff you manage?
I manage most of my personal care by myself. Um, like I said earlier, my boyfriend lives with me, so my boyfriend does help me with a lot of the things that I need help with. Mostly, the stuff I need help with is stuff around the house, like, cleaning and cooking and um, more physical type stuff, carrying things, all of that. And then I also have a caregiver who comes and helps me when my boyfriend is at work.
Got you, got you. This boyfriend of yours sounds really cool.
Yes, he is.
How long have you been together?
Almost 3 years.
Wow, nice. What does
Mhm.
he do?
He is a custom framer, so he builds picture frames.
Oh, cool.
Hmm.
And does he frame your photographs for you?
He does. He has framed several around our apartment.
Nice. Okay, question. Here you go. Photography question for you. Nikon or Canon?
I have a Nikon.
Oh, which one?
It's just a cool pics. It's not a super fancy camera.
That's cool. No, I'm a Nikon shooter as well. So photography is one of my things. So you mentioned photography. I got a little bit geeky and excited as well.
I'm not a professional by any means. I just do it for fun, as for something to do. Um, just point and shoot basically, or I use my phone as well.
That's still cool though. It's great for expressing yourself, and it's great for. So I did back in when my eldest boy was born back in 2008. I decided I had enough of point and shoot and really bad quality pictures which were overexposed or had red eye on everything. So I
Hmm.
decided to go and buy a digital SLR. So I bought an old Nikon D40 or D40X and taught myself to do photography. And I was terrible at it to start off with. But over time, I got much, much better. And what I did in 2011 was I started doing a 365. So it was a photo every day of the year. And it
That
started
is
off
so
on my,
awesome.
yeah, it started off on my phone. And
Wow.
I did it for a year on my phone. The second year I did it, I think I can't remember whether I started to do it on the digital SLR then or not. I think I did. And then by the time I got to my fourth year of doing it, So I had 4 years of a photo a day, and the only 2 days I missed, I was in bed with a chest infection. I was pretty rough. I think it was about year 3. No, it was year 2. That was 2012. I took photos every day, and by year 4, I was doing them on my digital SLR. So it was taking a photo, editing it every day, and uploading, making sure it was up there. And that was a really cool thing. Really, really cool thing to do.
Wow, that's really awesome.
I'm giving you ideas now.
Yes. Do you publish your photos on social media?
I don't as much now. That's a really good question. I recently had a change from running my clinic to going down the route of mentoring and coaching. And somebody asked me recently what my hobby was, and I realized that I don't actually have a hobby particularly now. Everything I do is usually involved somewhere within work and the coaching and the mentoring. But photography has always been the thing which I've kind of gone with. Now I have a Flickr account, so I use that, but I haven't uploaded to that for ages. A lot of photos on there. And I do have a Facebook page for my photography, but that hasn't been updated for a while. And mostly it goes on kind of personal Facebook pages. And I do some paid photography work for some of my clients, but usually as part of kind of the normal stuff we're doing with the coaching and mentoring and social media. And I do some video work as well. But yeah, and I've sold a couple of photos, nothing major. So I'm not a professional by any means either. I'd love to be though. It'd be great fun.
Yeah. So what got you to give up your clinic and become a mentor?
I've always enjoyed education, and I decided it's about 4 years ago now. I was having a pretty rough time with my anger and my temper, and this is one of the things I talked about yesterday in London. And it came to a head where I needed to go down that route of personal development to really sort things out. And interestingly, I think some of the things I wrestle with, and even probably now, which maybe led to that point, are probably down to being in hospital as a child and having surgery and various other things. So I think there's something in that whole Spina Bifida story in there. But I started going down the route of personal development, and it was a really interesting thing. I found out so much about me and understood really where I wanted to go. And last year, I had a really good coaching session with one of my coaches, and he asked me a very simple question. He said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to do more coaching and mentoring." And he said, "Well, how can you do it?" And it was a choice between either doing less hours in my clinic, or it was a choice between selling my clinic. And I looked at it and went, if I want to go and make a difference to the world, I can do it one patient at a time in my clinic, or I can work with people who are working with more people, and I can make a bigger impact. And you know, when you make a decision and it feels right, it was the right decision. So yeah, it was a decision out of choice and vision, and I suppose necessity, and I wasn't enjoying it as much as I would have liked to. So it was time for a change anyway.
That's amazing. I wish more people had that view.
I think you have to, don't you? I think the world the way it is at the moment, and we won't go down the route of politics because that's always a dangerous route to go anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely. And I think it's difficult in your part of the world, and it's equally as difficult in ours at the moment. But yeah, I think you have to make a decision about what you want to do and what you want to be and where you want to go, and you have to take some chances and be willing to fail. And there's a lot of people I think are scared of failure. They're scared of making, and I'm still scared of failure now in a lot of ways. But there's some people who just say, I really want to do that, but it's going to push me out of my comfort zone. It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to be able to do that easily, and I prefer the comfort I've got over here. So yeah, having that opportunity, and I've got some really good people around me. I've got an amazing family. I've got some amazing friends, and I've got some amazing colleagues, and I've got a really good kind of social media network as well of people who support me and work with me. So I've got some really great support out there.
That's awesome.
So what's going to be next for you? What's the next thing down the road for you?
So right now I'm just working on getting as healthy as I possibly can. And I'm really hoping that changes a lot in the next year, because I want to feel better about myself, and I can't, I can't make my health problems go away, but I can try to live a healthier life and hope that that decreases some of my pain and some of my other symptoms, and then I can enjoy my life a little bit more. And
Yeah,
then after all of that is on its way, I eventually would like to have one or two children.
cool. Boys or girls?
I mean, everyone always says that they want one of each. So, I mean, that would be awesome, but I would be happy with whatever it was.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's always nice. We always think we could have a choice on these things, but genetics wins out, whatever we do.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool. And I take it your partner shares the same vision as well, or at least you've told him that he's sharing the same vision.
Yes. He is not as ready for children right now as I am. So, because if I had it my way, I would have had kids like yesterday. But yes, he does want children as well, and he also wants to live a healthier life, so that we can, have more fun and enjoy our youth while we still have it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you, you can tell him this. I'll let you into a little secret. I'm 46 and I'm still not ready for children.
I don't think anyone ever really is.
No, and my daughter was born when I was 32, so when I was your age. So I'm 14 years down the line with a 14-year-old. So, and I'm definitely not ready. And the next step I'm not ready for, and I've had this conversation with her, and she's got a while to go yet, is I'm not ready for grandchildren either. So yeah, you're never ready for these things.
Yeah.
You've got some awesome stuff going on. What I've got a couple of questions for you actually, just around what is, if you had to say, I mean the people who are going to listen to this are, people I suppose in my world who are podiatrists and people over in the UK. What sort of things would you like people to know about your spina bifida, which maybe they might be a bit scared to ask, or they wouldn't automatically know, or they might assume, and are any of those related, I suppose, to your feet and legs?
Um, I mean, yeah, I just, um, especially in the medical field, I wish more doctors understood that how you treat a patient with spina bifida is not how you would treat a typical patient, because we just aren't the same and we don't have the same issues. No matter what degree of spina bifida we have, we're just not the same as a typical patient. Things don't heal the same, our muscles don't work the same, our metabolism isn't the same. So, we all want to be treated normal and equal as everybody else, but in the medical field, that's just not possible. And I have more doctors who don't understand spina bifida or don't even know what it is a lot of the time than doctors who do. And I think that's a really big problem, probably worldwide, I'm assuming, but especially in America. And also, there's this misconception a lot of the time that spina bifida is typically only affected in children. And it's like, we don't turn 18 and just automatically have our spina bifida go away. And I think the symptoms of it get worse as we get older, which would require more medical care. So we should actually have more medical care and doctors who understand our conditions available to us than we did when we were children.
That's really interesting. I mean that's a massive insight, and I kind of love your idea that doctors. Well, I'm not going to say doctors don't understand, because doctors do understand, but and my perspective as a podiatrist is I could look at any condition and I'll look at it from a medical perspective, but having spina bifida gives a very unique perspective. But you're right, we don't grow out of it. And I don't know what it's like in the US, but certainly in the UK, we have children's services which will take us through to about 16. And then there's this grey area between 16 and 18 where we're bridging that gap between being a child and being an adult. And then things start at 18 for adult services. But often they're not joined up. So you'll have people with complex needs, or a condition which needs some form of management through the childhood years, and it's managed great. When it gets to adulthood, it's like, actually, what's going on here? There's all kinds of things just don't exist. And I think that's really, really interesting. And your point that we kind of don't grow out of it. It's here for life. It's probably going to get worse. I do worry about what's going to happen to me in the next 10, 20, 30 years with my spina bifida. Is it going to be something which may progress? Is it something which may start to affect other nerves and maybe give me other symptoms? I've had some urological issues which I don't think are related, but could be, but still in the early stages.
They're
a real worry.
They might actually be related. A lot of the time with spina bifida occulta, it's not just back problems that lead people to finding out that they have it. Some of them start having, urology issues, and that's how they find out that they have spina bifida occulta. Most people with spina bifida do have urology issues, and I do as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. Yeah, and I saw a urologist. I saw a urologist about 4 years ago when I was just finishing off my master's degree, which was interesting. And actually symptoms changed, the symptoms worsened when I was coming to the end of my master's degree, when I was really under pressure to produce the final stuff of the dissertation, and eased massively when I got that data. And occasionally I'll get little tweaks of it, and I think they're probably stress related. But yeah, I haven't ruled out that it might be linked to the spina bifida. And it's interesting that that's a worry. That's definitely a worry for me.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. But going to what you're saying about what it's like in the UK, we have, as far as I'm aware, one consultant in the UK who specialises in spina bifida down at a hospital in London. I think it's the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. And there was some talk last year that consultant was retiring, but they had no facility then for a new consultant to come in. So all services would have stopped at that point. And it's been a massive support network medically for a lot of the people in the group I'm in, because they've got these complex, unique presentations of spina bifida, which have to be managed by somebody who can appreciate that. And your general GP, so general practitioner, or your surgeon, or whoever we've got over here, they tend not to be able to deal with that easily.
No, they don't know how to handle it because it's so many issues. People don't understand. When I say that, like, being a patient is like a full-time job, they think I'm joking, but I'm not. It really is a full-time job. Like, I see so many different specialists just to manage my spina bifida so that I can function like a normal human being. And we have a spina bifida clinic here in my city as well. And up until this year, was available for adults too, as well as children. I went there all of my whole life, and a lot of the original spina bifida specialists retired this year or in the last couple years. And I know that they were training other doctors, but for some reason, they decided to close the clinic for adults, and it just kind of leaves us like, where do we go? Like, I still have specialists and stuff, so I'm okay, but there's a lot of people out there who don't know about those things, and a lot of general doctors overlook symptoms because we have so many, and it's hard to diagnose which symptom is from which condition. And if your blood work comes back normal, they're like, oh great, you're fine, but we're not.
Yeah, and it does change. I get days where my ankle joint is fine and doesn't cause a problem. I'll get another day where maybe I go and walk 4 or 5 miles if I'm, traveling on the train or something like that, and I'll end up with in fact, I found something yesterday after walking in London that I've actually had a nail which is just rubbed against the toe adjacent to it. So I've trimmed the nail back, and it's a terrible thing to admit, being a podiatrist, that I've got an injured foot. And then I've got a nail which is constantly black because it's bruised all the time from where my toes claw. And then on another day, I might get some hip pain and some back pain because I've kind of walked too far, and then I ease off the next day. It's different each day. It's depending on which way you look at it, it's either really exciting or it's immensely scary.
Yes, absolutely. And I have a lot of those same issues, plus others as well.
It is definitely hard work.
And it's like, it is really random. Like, you never know what issue is going to come up. And a lot of the times, I'll make a doctor's appointment for something that's happening. And then by the time I get in, because it's a specialty appointment and takes, a couple months to get in sometimes, the issue will have like resolved itself. So then you're just stuck. You're like, what do I do?
Yeah, you can't get the rapid access you need to get that thing checked out at that point.
Yeah.
It's interesting while we're talking about this. I'm kind of reflecting on the last time I saw a specialist with regards to my spina bifida, and actually, as in, not I've seen podiatrists for it, and I actually have somebody who looks after my feet for me, because it's much easier for somebody to get to my feet than it is for me to get to my feet. And I'm
Right.
really cool with that. They do a brilliant job. In fact, they do a far better job than I can do for myself. So that makes a difference. But actually seeing somebody as an orthopedic specialist who deals with spina bifida, and certainly the team who operated on my back, and also my leg as a child, the last time I saw them was 25 years ago. And
Wow.
that's quite, and I've just, when you kind of do the maths on it and you go, wow, that's a really long time ago. I haven't seen anyone since to discuss it. And it kind of makes me go, maybe that's a question I need to ask. Maybe I need to go and have a word with my general practitioner and say, look, this is where I'm at the moment. Do we know what's out there? And do we know if there's somebody I can go and have a conversation with and just sort of see, is there anything different out there? Is there anything which I need to be aware of? Is there anything I need to be doing?
Yeah, I think it's better to be proactive and look into those things before it becomes a problem, because a lot of people wait until it's a problem and then it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am immensely lucky. I know I am. I have problems. I have issues. I get pain, but I'm independently mobile. I can go to the gym every day and work out. I can, I don't have to worry about anybody coming in and supporting me in a care aspect. So I'm really lucky, but I'm also aware of how physiology and aging comes along, and having treated a number of people with foot ulcers when they've been in their 6th and 7th generation, and seeing the issues which come when you've got added things like diabetes, or you've got reduced circulation. And certainly I know that I had some lymph nodes out on my left groin area back when I was 17. So I know that there's a chance that my lymphatic circulation on that side isn't going to be quite as good. And with a reduced action of the ankle and at the knee and at the calf, there's a potential that could be an issue for circulatory problems further down the line. And when you start to think about it, you go, oh my God, I need to go and get these things checked out. But, I am lucky, but there's still potential for things to happen. I just have to be very aware of that.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably true for everybody who has spina bifida. And not just for like physical things, but, mental health stuff too. And, like a lot of people have social issues or learning disabilities. And those don't just go away, when you're not a kid anymore. Like, you still have them. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, and then they end up in a crisis later on because they weren't receiving care before an issue got really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very complex situation, and these are not things that are unique to spina bifida. They're things which are everywhere, but at the same time,
Yes.
you've already got that kind of physical change, and then you layer on top of it the social stuff, the psychological stuff, the mental health stuff, all that other stuff coming on top. It's a big burden.
Yes. And it often makes people feel like they're a burden to other people as well.
Yeah.
Especially when you try to go to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, I don't know what to do, because then where do you turn next?
Yeah, exactly. You turn to the specialist, hoping the specialist can help you, and they're as stumped as you are.
Yeah, so then it just leaves you in a position where you have to figure it out or rely on other people around you, and then that's not fun for anyone.
How much do you, if you think about your doctor, how much of it, from a doctor's perspective, they don't know, but how much of it is they're actually scared that if they do one thing or another, it might cause further damage? Do you think that comes into it?
I'm sure it does. I don't know if I've ever heard any of them say something like that. I'm sure part of it is them being fearful, that they're going to make something worse.
Complete fear of the unknown. Because I have been quite blasé about my spina bifida in the past, and there's things which, not things which I've done in terms of big activity. I've not jumped out of a plane, although someone wants me to do that. I'm not sure about that at the moment, but we'll discuss that one another day. But I'm kind of, when it comes to things with my left leg, my left leg's got damage anyway. Yeah, my left leg doesn't work as well as it could. I'm actually quite up for people not experimenting, but I don't look at procedures which could be considered risky, maybe in a patient with diabetes with circulatory issues or changes in foot shape. I don't kind of look at them as the same level of risk as me. And I'm probably quite relaxed. If one of the students at the uni I worked at was to do surgery on nail surgery on my foot, I'd be far more relaxed about it than maybe other people would. But I think it's just that unique perspective on things.
Right.
And I'm not one of these people who goes bonkers and tries everything. I do have massive amounts of fear in various things as well, but definitely not a plane yet.
Yeah, me either.
Do you know? I think probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your day, seeing as you're 8 hours behind me, and you've been absolutely fantastic. It has been such a pleasure to spend the time talking to you about it. It's been so cool to hear your perspective on it, and the stuff you're doing is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Um, these support groups that you talk about, are they things which are open to any particular group of people, or are they generally open, or is it something which is geographical?
I run two groups for people with spina bifida. One of them is provides information and resources and support, and it's for anyone who has spina bifida or their loved ones. Maybe parents or partners. Anybody who's affected by spina bifida, and it can be anywhere in the world, not just the U.S. And the other one that I run for spina bifida is for women, and it's about sex and pregnancy and reproductive health and women's health. A lot of like personal issues that affect those of us with spina bifida, but are kind of afraid to ask or talk about with people in their lives. And I noticed that there was a medical need for that, so I created the group for that purpose. I also admin for another sexual health group for women with disabilities, just any disabilities in general. And I also admin for a weight loss group for people with disabilities, or moderate one. And I also run a mental illness page for support, and that is open to anyone who is affected by any type of mental illness of any kind. And I have a corresponding Facebook page related to that group as well.
Wow. Wow. Do you have time to sleep at all, or eat?
I mean, yeah, because it'll be there in the morning when I wake up. Like I don't I don't have to be on it constantly. But I just, like I said earlier, I just don't want people to feel like they're alone. Um, and all of these different things I'm really passionate about, and I like finding resources for people. I like reading about different things, and I like reading studies. And I might post a little too much in my groups, but it's because I just want people to be aware of issues that affect them or their loved ones. I want people to have information at their disposal, so that you know people, they're aware, they know what something is, or how to manage it, or to know that they can do something about it. um so that's why I do that.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to come out and talk to me. My brain is firing off with ideas and some things which might help you actually, and some things which might be useful to your group. So we'll talk about those kind of off the call anyway. We won't ruin the listeners' ears with all that kind of chatter. But I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you for taking this time out of your day to come on and talk to little old me here in the UK. Um, with your
Thank
with
you. Thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate that, and I've never done an interview about this before, and I'm just really honored that you asked me. And if I can ever help you with anything else, let me know.
You are an absolute superstar. I am really grateful. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome, and thank you.